Happy Friday, Smite fans. You're watching the Smite Challenger Circuit. My name is Dolson. Aggro is with me. We've got a great day of SCC action. Aggro, you and I ended the day yesterday with a little bit of chaos over there in North America. Maybe we'll pick up with some more action here to start the day.
Yeah, I think we might. I mean, we got a pretty good matchup here to kick us off. It's Average Joe's up against the Winter Dogs, and of course, Winter Dogs headlined by Anster in the jungle and Crimson in the mid lane. Those two have really had their moments this year and looked very, very strong. And they're up against this Average Joe's team that seems to be in constant turmoil. They've been making a lot of changes. They have another one ready to go this week. Elion has been playing in that support role, but now he's moving back into his more natural role in the jungle, and they picked up Promise for support. So I'm interested to see what this team is going to look like with this setup.
Well, it's time to get the ball rolling here for this Average Joe's team. 1-3 right now in the North American SCC. On the other side, Winter Dogs also 1-3. So the standings pretty interesting here in North America, where Tiburones and Sturdy Artisans kind of beating everyone, and then everyone else taking games off one another. And with how tight-knit 3 through 5 is here in the North American SCC, getting a win here, massive for both of these two teams to separate yourself from the rest of that pack. So let's start right into that conversation, Aggro. Average Joe's, they've been swapping around. Leon has been in support for a little while. How important do you think that swap to jungle is for this team?
I think it's very important. I mean, jungle and support we talk about a lot in terms of being very similar in their roles on the map. They roam the most out of the they don't have their set lane the vast majority of the time. Those things are very important, but the style of gods they're going to play in those two roles are obviously very, very different. And I think that Elion, he's known as a leader. He's known as a guy who's going to come in and do a lot for you in terms of shot calling. I think that just having him in a carry potential role is just the way to go. Yeah, he'll have the games where he tries to do a little bit too much and ends up falling behind, and it might cost you. But I think the vast majority of the time, his playmaking capability is going to serve you as a positive rather than a negative. And he has the games where he just looks unstoppable at times and really knows how to push the lead. So I'm definitely a fan of putting Elion back in the jungle. Not really convinced quite yet of what Promise is going to be able to do in that support role. I mean, support in the NASCC is pretty stacked. Honestly, when you've got guys like Yannick, like Gino, like Blugan in this league, you're gonna have a pretty high bar to be able to compete. So I'm excited to see what Promise is going to be able to do for the Average Joes here.
All right, so the mindset probably similar for Leon, but on gods that can kind of surge that forward maybe a little bit extra here for this team. On the opposite side, Winter Dogs. This is a team, again, that hasn't quite gotten that momentum going here in the North American SCC. Tough teams to go up against. Up at the top, you named a couple great supports that are in this league. So the competition is at an all-time high. This is Big UG, Aquarius, Crimson, Andenster, and Gamma. What does this team look like to you?
This team is all about that early game, baby. They buy in to getting pressure and absolutely running it down to try in order to get those early leads. And I like it. I think that just going for that early pressure ends up working well the vast majority of the time. Is it gonna lose you some games on the back end? Almost certainly, yes. But I just like the idea that they're all buying into one strategy and that they're playing around what each other think is good. That's my favorite part of the way these guys play. Aqua's looked good in the solo lane. Gamma seems to have expanded the god pool a little bit, adding in this Ymir, a more traditional Guardian, but still going for the vast majority of those pressure picks. For me, this team lives and dies is probably a little bit too strong, but really relies on Andenster having his good games. When Andy gets those leads, he really loves to play the map, but I think that Andy's downfall at times is that he'll play the same way whether he's 4-0 or 0-4, and being able to change gears is important at this level because you aren't going to be able to get leads for free every single game, especially when teams know what you like to do. So I'm assuming that the Average Joes have done their homework, that they're going to be ready for the early onslaught, whether it be in the types of picks they're taking away or banning from the Winter Dogs, or in the way that they're starting on the map and rotating around and defending their buffs. I want to see Average Joes pick compositions that can actually defend their buffs, because we can assume pretty safely that the Winter Dogs are going to try and go for them.
I mean, you're pretty keen there talking about Annister, his early game. Literally the first replay we see is a level 2 gank, a cringe gank. As we talked a good bit, that's the solo
right.
lane variety over there on the right-hand side of the map. Picks and bans for game number 1 kicking off right now. And it's going to be very important, I think, to emphasize the jungle here in this matchup. We've talked about Leon and his transition to the jungle for this Average Joe's team, and then Andenster and the style that he likes to play over there for the Winter Dogs team. Do you think that role maybe the most important here in this matchup?
Well, first of all, it always is. Every game is jungle diff. Don't get it twisted. We all know that's how it goes. But yeah, both of these teams, I think their identity is so core to their jungler. I guess I should have said that the other way around. Their jungler is super core to their identity. Those guys are the driving forces of these teams, the primary shot callers. So yeah, I think that we should be looking heavily at the jungle matchup. I like the Tsukiyomi ban immediately by Average Joe's, trying to make sure that they are locked into what Annister wants to do. The Giannis ban makes sense to me as well. Krim has looked very, very good on that pick during his career, so I don't mind it whatsoever.
That's right, a couple target bans, but then bans that also make sense in a vacuum if you're just taking away some of those important gods. Guan Yu then left open. That'll be the first overall pick here for the Average Joes. On the other side, some power picks as well get taken away. Set has kind of been in and out of that conversation. Athena firmly rooted in maybe the top ban conversation across the SCC and the SPL. 1 p.m. Eastern time today, by the way. Make sure to tune in. Tiamat left open, though, aggro, and that's been now a big transitional conversation where at the SPL level, Tiamat has made her way through into the picks a handful of times, a couple of wins now finally under her belt. But is she still in that power position? Well, the Winter Dogs think to seem yes. Yes, there we go.
Listen, it's early, Dave. We're both trying to get the ball rolling here at the SCC. You know what I mean? Look, I was talking about it yesterday with Mifflin. I think Tiamat probably a little bit overrated, but in her moments can still be very strong. You just need whoever's playing her to be willing to get in there and get their hands dirty. I think if you're using that leap to get away, you're probably doing something wrong with the composition or the way you're playing the character. So I'm excited to see what we're going to see out of the Winter Dogs. Remember, last time they locked this in, it didn't go to Crib, it went to Aqua over there in that solo lane. She has since been nerfed to be worse in the solo lane because she needs power for that mitigation to be higher. That makes me think it might be in mid lane this time around for Crimson, but I like the Winter Dogs not selecting either a solo laner or a mid laner alongside this pick quite yet. Leave it open-ended and make the Joes guess.
Well, the Average Joes are guessing that it's mid lane based on that Sun Wukong ban, their first ban in the second wave here. Fenrir taken off the table as well. And then a Serket to round out the final bans here for the Winter Dogs. On the other side, catching up with the Average Joes, they've got Honor, they've got Scylla as well. Talk about power picks in both Hunter and in the mid lane role. The Average Joes, I think, are happy with the way that their top 3 has gone here, especially with the Guan Yu to set up for some of that damage if the Cavalry charge is able to connect. It's a good first 3 picks here for the Average Joes.
Very interesting that they go Kumbhakarna in this spot. It just doesn't feel like as much of a Gamma God, but it does disrupt that Guan Yu a little bit on his dives in. I mean, he has to channel Talu Assault between Epic Uppercut and Mesmerize. It's going to be pretty difficult to do. I just think that I'm a little surprised to see this Kumbhakarna lock in. I'm excited to see what Gamma could do on it. It does bring they have a ton of CC on their composition, but I love these 2 picks for the Average Joes. Ganesh Naja, plenty of setup for Baron Aerie on that Scylla.
And right now we're going to get to see our kind of first look at the Leon synergy with Baron Aerie in maybe its most raw form, right? You get a Naja and a Scylla, and that is like the combo, or one of the styles of combos that requires extreme jungle to mid lane synergy. And you know, Leon, I'm sure he can play this pick very well. Baron Aerie, we know he's good on the Scylla, so now combining those two, going to be important to get a win here in game number 1. Kukulkan to finalize the draft for the Winter Dogs, so maybe a similar mindset aggro over for the Winter Dogs mid and jungle.
Yeah, I think, again, a lot of setup between Thor and Kumba for this Kukulkan. Both mid laners with these big damage, secure ultimates at the same time, so objective fights are going to be fun to watch. Yeah, I'm just a little bit worried about Aqua on this Tiamat solo. I think that one of her weaknesses is her early game. Guan Yu can really punish you and push you in pretty well on that pick early on if he goes Bluestone, which I would anticipate Uzi doing. I'd expect some early blue buff invades, and if that starts happening, I think that the Joes are just stronger at that point. So I'm watching that right side of the map to see how Aqua's able to tread water on the Tiamat.
Can the role swaps and the fresh team comp work for the average Joes in game number 1? We got to jump in to find out.
Thank you, Dolson and Aggro. It's Finch and Gore as we hop into this critical game number 1. I think we've got Doug back with us as well, providing us the views. Hope you're feeling better, man. It is always better when we have you here with us. Now, Gore, there's a bunch of big storylines here. I think Aqua on this Tiamat and solo is a big one, as the desk was just saying. But I also think, as the desk just said, Leon back in what I consider his home, his proper role in the jungle.
Oh, yeah.
Which one of those do you think is going to be bigger here? Or just go ahead and talk to me about both, whichever you like.
I really do think that Leon back in the jungle, like, first off, we've been talking about it, literally, like, when he started playing and we're like, well, he's in mid, like, I think he's going to be, like, he's a good mid laner, he's a good solo laner, he's a good support, he's a good carry, but he's a fantastic jungler, right? Like, that's the big difference, is that jump up in the jungle performance from what we've seen from Leon. I think he is all around a player that you can have be that flex for your team, and that's what he was for average Joes. They needed a mid laner, so he stepped up to it. They needed a support, so he stepped into it. But this is to the point where I would say Winter Dogs maybe win this 2-0 if we have Leon still as a support and the team as it was. With him in the jungle, I think it puts average Joes in favor of winning this set pretty quickly. Like, I think he knows exactly what he's going to do. His rotation should be on point. He's got a Cuckoo in the mid, so very easy ganks for him on a Naja as well. Like, this just feels like a good formula for the average Joes to find success. As far as the solo lane goes, I think that's going to be up to Uzi right now. Aquarius has made this pick look good pretty much every time he's gotten it. It's just going to be the question of whether or not Uzi can handle it this time.
Leon's the one that looks like he needs a little bit of help handling his current situation. The tornado land, the root there as well. And welcome back to the jungle, Leon. Winter Dogs are unimpressed as Crimson finds the first blood. And you were just saying how this Naja should be a pick for Leon that allows him to control this early game. It should. I think you have the right analysis there, Gorge, that he gets caught out in the jungle. And that's not the way you want to start things off here with your return.
Yeah, we're coming. It's a warm-up game, right? Warm-up game. Get back into the jungle. Like, warm up. We got a little practice under our belts here for average Joes. Now, I think, like you said, he's just caught out there. Not much you can do about that one except for eat it. I mean, unfortunately, he does burn his beads, but it does kind of open up the conversation of where he's going to be and maybe how impactful he's going to be for this one. I think there's a lot of pressure on him to perform, obviously to the highest level. Winter Dogs aren't going to make it easy for him. I mean, this has been a team that has been successful, at least as of late, and been able to find a lot of kills. Average Joe's not quite on the same page as that. And while I think, again, all the pieces of average Joe's are fantastic now, it's just they've had the struggles of constant roster swaps. I think this is their strongest form that we've gotten to see this year. But it might take a couple of games, maybe a couple of sets to get at full function. We'll have to see if they can get there by the end of this one. One death isn't anything here for Leon, so I'm sure he'll bounce back.
All right, certainly not the end of the world. What we're really thinking about, I think, is his timer towards getting that Windfire wheels online and then how quickly he and Baroneri can sync up on that core combo Dolson and Aggro were talking about on the desk. That's going to be obviously critical, though the Annister Crimson one, not all that different, right? Anvil of Dawn into even Tornado, and then just Thor's follow-up damage, probably enough at this stage to kill just about anyone. And that's even without the ultimate there from Crimson, which I think would likely finish the job as well. And that means now Annister should be a little bit ahead of Leon on that timer, on that combo. And maybe that'll end up cascading into more problems. Hey, there's some Vines value showing up at the worst time for Annister, but no way for the average Joes to catch back up. I don't know, the Vines haven't been all that impactful so far here, Gore, but maybe we saw a little bit of it as Annister moving in on Leon, who is low, and they'll even drop the Cuckoo up with a root, and again, Leon will spill in the middle lane. What a combo from Winter Dogs in their mid 3v3, and now Baroneri just going for it all on his own, cannot connect, and forced to retreat back to the Sentinel.
Look, I gotta give him credit. First off, now a stun with a tornado. Looks like it might be another one. Promise, yeah, gonna fall down here to Andy. A little bit of return damage from Baroneri, but that's just clean play from Winter Dogs. Of all the things in this game that you could have told me Crimson would combo off of, the Kumba Mez was honestly going to be one of the last on my list. Like, maybe not the very bottom, but, like, that's not the ability I think as big setup, easy kills when it comes down to it. Usually it's the, I'm going to stall you out, I'm going to peel. Like, it's never necessarily the Wombo combo, but Crimson, as well as Gamma, kind of working together there. That one was fantastic. Off of a brilliant stun from Andy. Like, I mean, it was just a little cleaner all around And going back to what you were saying, like Andy runs into a vine right there, but it kind of showcases how it blocked his sight for a little bit, but then immediately he just taps it and walks back into the lane and acts like nothing happened. Like it didn't necessarily hinder him either. I think that's the strengths here for Winter Dogs, is that they've got the synergy that Average Joe's needs is already online for the Winter Dogs, so it's going to take a little bit. I just want the Average Joes to stay the same roster for a couple of weeks, man. That's really where I'm at on this one.
And Gore, what really makes this one kind of a backbreaker for the Joes in this early game is Leon did go with this Purification Bead start. Sometimes, for Najah, things would be a little bit easier for him if he's taking in that blink, and then he could use the sash a bit more freely and have some setup off that blink for the Windfire Wheels. He took B to the safety, and that has not worked so far here. My man's 0-2 to start this game off, and ended up losing Promise on the back of it too. What I'm really getting from all this is, why haven't we seen more Thor? I mean, obviously Thor's Andinster is a tale as old as time at this point. It's a classic for him, but my man seems to have great control in the mid 3v3. It's been working for him so far. I feel like we could stand to see more of this god throughout all our levels of play.
Well, it's been like, I had a hypothetical conversation that someone on Twitter said, like, when exactly do you think you could see Merlin? I said it'd be the Leviathans. Right now it's going to be Leon going up into the air. Yuji in trouble.
He is, and Griff is there to seal off the escape path, but Crimson's still on the mark, and Leon as well. Able to set up for 2 kills is Leon, but I think the boys of Winter Dogs want to find a bit more, but it's just Gamma coming in. That means the opportunity's low. 2 for 1 and much needed from Joe's. And Gore, that started off with a nice little sash there from Leon, probably the last frame that could have connected with that wall coming in the way, but good for him to be able to connect it. That sets up for a big kill into UG and Andy to slow things down.
Still had to use his beats in that fight, but getting a kill, getting an assist on top of that's going to help out. Now, Gamma, I mean, I can't count this one as much more than just in the wrong place, although they're not going to be able to get it in the mez. That's what I said. It's a good peel tool. It's not necessarily a setup tool. I kind of expected maybe Leon to go in for a sash, but it feels like, again, maybe biting off more than you can chew, right? Is that worthwhile? Do you want to invest so heavily into that? Not really. It's just a support at the end of the day. I mean, granted, it's a support. Gamma's definitely done a lot of work for this one. They don't want to make sure, or they don't want to end up overextending themselves trying to kill off a Kumba of all things. And so I like that, but kind of going back to what I was saying, someone had mentioned like Merlin, and I think this goes along with Thor, where it's like, if I had to look at teams that were going to pick those
infatuated by our symmetry. It feels like before now I was only half of me. Thought that I had figured it out, never felt it rationally, but this sense of urgency has been one.
And we're back, Smite fans. Apologies for that interruption, but looks like we have not missed out on any action, so let's get right back into it. Still Finch, Gore, and Doug bringing you the complete picture here as we are back into the action. And Gore, I know we were kind of talking a little bit before this, but I have been drawn over yet again to Aqua on this solo lane. A conduit gem start for him into these purple boots. I don't know, can't say that I was expecting something else. Maybe thought we might see Vamp Shot, a little bit of health on that, some lifesteal, but conduit gem so important for improving your clear. I don't think I've got much complaints here. You like this idea though for Aqua over on the start?
Yeah, I mean, everything about it just feels like it's going to be solid for him in solo lane, right? It's going to keep him comfortable and keep him active.
Oh, but they're right into the action here, Gordon. Leon has to use Windfire Wheels to get away from Gamma. That should bring Thor down into Baroneri's waiting hands, and Leon avoids the ultimate from Cuckoo, and Baroneri finds another shot off that ultimate. That brings Gamma down low, but can the squad catch up? Gamma has the blink to escape. But just like that, the Joes have turned around the momentum of this set, the actual numerical values of this set, and are right back in it.
I mean, this is, again, just incredible to see from them. More tenacity than anything. It's a team that I think is going to take a little bit of warm-up, but it feels like all of the Winter Dogs are slowing down a little bit. Even Griff over here is looking for some solo action if he could find it. Not going to be able to lock him down. It's Heimdall, so I don't expect to see a lot of kills over there unless maybe Yuji is turning around and having a big pop-off moment. But it's this mid 3v3, specifically what Baroneri and Leon, and Promise, I'm going to have to throw him into the equation, are going to be able to do together versus Andy, Crimson, Gamma, right? Andy, Crimson, Gamma combined for 1 or 2 really sick kills earlier in mid, but they haven't done a whole lot since, and I think that's where things are starting to fall apart. You also factor in what Uzi, I think, is going to be able to apply in the late game versus what we're seeing out of Tiamat. I think Uzi ultimately going to have maybe a little more utility. The healing that comes through for the team is going to be crucial, but also Prot Shred, a big, nice, fat stun. I mean, just a lot that really can set it up. And Aquarius is going to be able to bring a little bit of that, a couple of stuns, and knock up those minions that are very much a nuisance to a lot of people. But it doesn't seem like it's going to be as big of a rotationary problem when the Tiamat joins the fight versus when it's one you joins the fight. So we'll have to watch specifically how that one works out, because I think Uzi, especially now with the Genji's Guard, like I think he's actually going to have a pretty clean game overall. Cooldowns are going to be up for him. His passive going to apply that as well. Like, I mean, he's really going to be in the middle of the fight later on and really popping off for what they need.
Yeah, I'm thinking so. Aqua feeling pretty good with this breastplate as well, but I don't know if Leon will be. But he used the sash to avoid the root, has been epic uppercutted, but Andenster seems uninterested, and I think he's correct. Backup is on the way, so Andy hammers away. But Uzi wants to get involved with his ultimate. Won't be able to get Andy, who takes to the sky, so Gamma, the target instead. But Andenster still patiently awaiting, and finally dunks down. Promise is the one. But Promise not the one who gets dunked. He had beads, escapes, and doesn't get hit by the Kukulkan ultimate. But a good wall means Uzi and Baroneri now trapped inside the tornado. But no further follow-up will come from it. Average Joes were initially the prey, then the predator, then the prey yet again. But they elude all of the trouble as Baroneri steps up and gets mezzed and narrowly escapes further trouble.
I mean, at this point, everyone's just Matrix dodging, right? Like, I mean, they are just absolutely making sure they don't go
shooting
down.
And dodging.
Narrow. Yeah, it feels like they're going to die at any second. Someone should have gone down, theoretically, in that fight. Everyone gets to walk out with their lives. You can see, though, Crimson has started up that Book of Thoth. It's 39 stacks in, so pretty soon he is going to be just a pain. I don't know how else to describe it, but a menace. I mean, it's going to be a lot of power, a lot of damage that suddenly comes online for him. Those tornadoes are going to hit a little harder. Spirit of the Nine Winds is going to hit a little harder. Like, I feel like right now, especially because he's 3-0-1, Crimson slowly becoming the biggest threat on Winter Dogs. Granted, it's going to be on the back of Andy and Aqua and Gamma, who are going to be the setup kings for him. But if you get rid of Crimson, it feels like a lot of the follow-up for what they have on Winter Dogs will disappear with him.
Yeah, and I'm wondering now, whose job is it to get in there and remove those safety relics from Crimson so they can start to slow him down a bit. Leon can do it with the sash, but he's committing his body a bit to follow up on the back of it. So then maybe you think a nice Sikkim do it, Promise get in there maybe and lock him down a bit, even Uzi with that ultimate. They've got some options, but you want a nice low commitment way to force Crimson into seeing that he's in danger, responding with a relic or two, and then Leon can really get active and follow up. Remember, his job more than anything is to be the one that I think actually follows through once those are down, not just to burn. So he's going to need a little bit of extra help in terms of finding Crimson. But Leon has turned this game around. He's now ahead of Andenster. Sure, Baronaire's a bit behind. Not much he can do when Crimson got so many kills in the early. But they've got a big lead in support and in ADC. And they're even with their Tiamat solo. All things considered, the average Joes probably couldn't have expected to be in much better of a position considering how this game started.
Yeah, this is pretty much exactly what they want. Now, Andy forced into the sky. I mean, that's a huge ult to be able to burn down. I mean, I wouldn't even say, like, nothing. Like, that's just a clean one to pull away from them because that is going to be such a monumental portion of their setup.
Yeah. Should be a kill here for Griffin. It is. Yuji goes down, impaled out of the Bifrost, and that works for on her every time in that matchup, and I love it. Like clockwork onto the Fury after getting the pick and forcing Andenster's ultimate out. They know he cannot drop in as the satellite, so someone on the Winter Dogs will have to commit their body to contest this. Dharmic Pillars come out, crush there. The average Joes connect a kill in left to the Fury and have turned this game around. They're up 2K.
That's a really solid play and good calls from him. And again, something that I was wondering about, and it just came down to it. I think this conversation we had exactly last week, which was, man, you can tell Leon is making the shot calls, but things just aren't working out for them. I think Ishtao was the one in the jungle, and unfortunately, Ishtao had some really great games and some really not great games, right? Like, it'd be very in between, but you can feel the same shot call energy coming out, but with more performance behind it, and I think that's what they were kind of missing, right? Was the ability to really enact what they saw in their mind. Like, what they envisioned was good enough, but this is exactly what I feel like I was missing a little bit here for Average Joes, and it feels a lot better. It's really weird to think about it because both of these teams are at the same spot in the standings. I mean, we had 4 teams, I believe, that tied at 1 and 3 coming into this week.
Yes.
And it's just so bizarre, especially because this is the first NA match of those 4 teams. And it feels so different. Like, Average Joes, their 1 and 3 feels worse than Winter Dogs 1 and 3, even though they both technically mean the same thing. And it really does come down to just the way that they got there and the path that they got there. It wasn't as clean, or admittedly, it was a little more difficult for the Average Joes. So they are the ones that, in my mind, are the underdogs for this matchup. But this is looking a lot better, especially since those first few kills. Like, Winter Dogs dominated 5 minutes in, but Aggro had set it on the desk. This is a team that they'll hold W at you for 5 minutes, but sometimes it will lose them the games down the stretch. I feel like Average Joes are maybe the team that's going to cause them some distress down the stretch now.
Yeah, and remember how that all started as well, Gore. It was Promise that initially engaged on Andy, forced him into the ultimate with some backup from the rest of the Joes, and then Griff gets independent pressure on Yuji. It didn't have to be Leon as the initial catalyst as Yuji catches him out, but stuck on the Dharmic Pillars and will not escape with the Bifrost. That is the ultimate down, but no relics even given a chance to be used, as cleanly set up again by Griff and Promise, with Leon is the one that comes in on the back initially, caught out, yes, by that ultimate from Yuji, but got to do next to nothing to threaten Yuji initially. I think Leon's going to have to be second in, and Promise is going to have to continue doing exactly what he's done in these last 2 fights, being the one that draws those resources out first.
And this is a good position for them to be in. Look, a tier 1 tower off the back of that, plus the Fury from earlier. Like, the gold is steadily but surely coming up in favor of Average Joes. Gamma here does not look to be in a good position. That's going to be Leon going up to the air. Look, that one, I'd drop it if there was going to be any more action, Finch, but there's not. Kumba's down and gone. It's just going to be the passive at this point. A pretty easy, clean kill for them. Again, just impressive to me how well the Average Joes have picked up this mid-game to the late-game portion, right? I'm assuming it's going to kind of continue this trend as of right now. And that Scorpion over there, Forp, has not gone down just yet. But once he does, Pyromancer, that's going to be a pretty easy pickup off the back of some of these engagements. And a Fire Giant, I mean, and as long as he get rid of Crimson, it seems like it's a sure shot in the future.
Another fight started up with good work there from Promise and Grip. This dual lane has been instrumental in the turnaround for the average Joe's. Grip just outright outplaying Yuji, now level 18, a monster against anyone he faces. Going to be moving into crit here shortly, but already has the Executioner finished. I think he's looking to fight any and all takers as the Scorpion in front of the Fire Giant will be going down in favor of the Joes. A couple enhanced buffs for their trouble on the back of that. And if I'm average Joe's, I'm looking for any and all excuse to have Griff in my fights from now on, whatever it takes. I would like that man involved because he is a monster. Does finish the Wind Demon, so the crit now here in full force. And there's Anderson getting the B forced out, and yet again, who was there? Promise alongside Baroneri get the job done.
And you had mentioned the blink earlier for Leon and how it's kind of lacking early on, but he's got that online as of now. It beats Aegis there for Andy. So a lot of, I don't even want to call it selfish, but protection, right? I mean, Aegis, admittedly, and Beads are both just to keep you alive and have you prolong your life a little bit longer. And so with Aquarius, I mean, everybody, save for Gamma having the exact same relics, makes it a little easier. Like, Leon comes in, you burn one pair of beads, maybe you target somebody else in the next fight, burn theirs, or, in this case, you just go for Leon again, or, sorry, for Andy again, and all of a sudden he's going to be the one who gets knocked down pretty easily, because he doesn't have the survivability to take the sash anymore. And it's just opening up the conversation, and you can see the focus slowly shifting over there towards the right-hand lane, except for Grip, who just really wants another solo kill.
Leon, though, has started the fight off in mid, and so in comes Gamma to try and keep Baroneri out, but you can't stop I'm a monster, though Leon gets locked down in mid. Crimson finds a critical return kill, and Baroneri low as well, though Crimson cannot catch up in time to find more. So jungle for jungle, and meanwhile, Griff taking any fight he can, ends up in the 2v1. Aqua has made his way into the fray, and Griff doesn't have an answer for this just yet, but Dharmic Pillars buys the time. Promise keeps him out, and Yuji now suddenly happy to take the fight now that Griff is low, but gets impaled, cannot step any further forward, and good work by the Joes to not lose more. But now they might lose the Fury. Yes, Uzi's here, Gore, but how much can he do alone?
I mean, he's going to try his best to get anything done. Has his ult, but he's going to have to use that to disengage. Promise is going to have to run away. And this is what I will always say about a Primal Fury, and it is something that if you can get it, you can steal it, whatever it takes, go for it, but don't lose your lives over it. And I think that's kind of where they're at. They're not going to be able to steal this one away, but they're still looking for a fight. In fact, Baroneri's looping around the back.
Yeah, they postured like they still want more fight here. Silence from Promise does delay Gamma, but Baroneri can't find the loop around he was looking for. So the Joe's still ahead after all that, about 2k gold in their favor, but a nice little grab back from the Winter Dogs to get that Fury to find that one-for-one jungle trade. But looks like the average Joe's like this window where Winter Dogs have to reset to start up the Pyromancer, though not everyone on the Winter Dogs did reset. Gamma and Crimson still nearby, but the rest of the boys don't even seem to realize it's happening, or at least have decided it's not worth it. The Joes grab Pyro in exchange for the Primal Fury on the other side. So the Joes maintain their lead despite a tough fight there in mid.
Now, Finch, I'm going to live in the past here for a second, but
please do.
I will make it relevant to the future here. Level 20 to level 16 right now for Griff over Yuji. Go back to that 1v1, and even though Yuji has way more health, once Griff gets that pillar stun, he had his ult. Like, I genuinely think Griff could have soloed out Yuji there and had, I want to call it like a Leviathan's moment, right? Like, I feel like Yarkor is the kind of player who would turn around and do that to you. Like, there's a couple in the league, in the Pro League, that would do that, and I feel like Griff had an opportunity to. It was absolutely safer not to, right? He is one bad play, one missed shot away from dead if things don't go his way. But I feel like that dynamic is exactly what I expect to see in the coming moments as well, right? He's just got such a massive lead over Yuji that he's going to be able to knock him down if they go into a 1v1. Like, Yuji has to be able to enter at least a 1v1 with Griff with a massive lead or backup. Otherwise, he's so far behind right now, slowly but surely catching up thanks to the fact that Griff is 20. There's nowhere else for him to go. But it's going to take him a little bit to really get there.
Leon drops a sentry onto fire. I wonder if this is more of a bait or if they seriously want to start this up. Either way, the Winter Dogs have the order side of the Fire Giant pit. Well warded as Leon has looped around to the back, so Promise zones away 3, and Gamma now the next target, but Epic Uppercut already used, and it's And and Stir to the sky and looking for a target, though the Joes are relatively spread out. He decides to go for Leon, who drops the beads and the ultimate in response, and now Uzi's stuck between 4, does find a path to escape towards Solo, and his boys are on the way to provide some backup. But the Winter Dogs have found themselves a nice engagement. Gamma and Answer's ults dropped, yes, but they got beads out of Leon alongside his ult and the blink from Uzi.
And every single relic is up on the side of Winter Dogs, right? They didn't have to burn any of theirs. The ults, like you said, yeah, they go down, but that's going to be worthwhile. The Blink Sash is still a threat from Leon, but where's the safety in that, right? Like, okay, you blink, you sash, you're stuck there now. You're not going to be able to win fire wheels or beats your way out. And so maybe it's going to be some easy lockdown and good lockdown for Baroneri, but you have to be incredibly careful trying to engage like that. And of course, it's Leon. I don't think they're going to get a little overzealous early, but I do think they need to factor that in. Spear of Deso, as well as this Rada Tahuti, finished up for Baroneri, so it's going to be a pretty big power spike for this Scylla. Plus, once level 20 comes online, you get that full passive enabled, and that is going to hurt. And that is what I think we're waiting for. Once Baroneri ticks over there, we're probably going to talk a lot more about this Scylla. Right now, our player damage isn't terribly high, kind of middle of the pack. I mean, just 4,700, 1,000 behind where Uzi is, but not necessarily the worst-case scenario. I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more, though.
No, wouldn't mind it, but Baroneri has been playing safely, which is also good, but the Fire Giant just outright started up by the Winter Dogs, and no one on the Joj is close. And look at these wards, they know that no one's particularly close, but as he makes his way in, now that it's low, Cuckoo Ultimate going to be critical here for the confirmation, and it's finally coming out now from Crimson, but the average Joes get it too early, and Uzi gets the kill on the Yuji to top things off. Absolute disaster for the Winter Dogs on the right side of the map, and Gamma in absolute danger of falling. But can the boys catch up and make that actually happen? Do they even need to with how well the fight's already gone? Sikkim doesn't connect, but they'll take the mid-tier 1 and everything else they want.
The Ganesh turn of fate. His lane clear of all things, 200 damage. Secures that Fire Giant for them. A clean kill onto Yuji as well. I mean, he was getting shredded before he knew what was going on, and nobody was there to peel for him. And that's going to be at least a tier 2. I mean, this Phoenix looks like it's in danger. Leon takes a lot of poke. Uzi's a little low, but they've got healing here, Finch. I feel pretty confident in the average Joe's staying power, at least. But with 2 tier 2s up, with an Oni Fury coming up, I don't mind them. Again, pump the brakes a little bit. Don't get too excited. Don't run yourselves into death, right? Don't run into doom and gloom. They're going to go for the fight. They might still be looking for the Phoenix.
Yeah, they baited the Winter Dogs out, and Crimson has his bees forced out by Uzi, who gets aggressive on the back of that ultimate, and Gamma will fall as well. But Spirit of the Nine Winds does manage to hit a couple, though Gamma will still fall in the back. And Gore, as you already eloquently stated, I think the average Joes, if they wanted, could stick around. They got plenty of sustain, but nothing wrong with spending this gold lead they just accrued. But looks like they like plan A. They take the fight, bait the Winter Dogs in, and without Gamma, without Crimson's ultimate, maybe they will push back, but they decide in the end on the retreat. Maybe wish we could have come to this decision a little bit faster, but either way, I don't think the Joes are complaining. They've grabbed a Fury, plus Fire, plus 2 kills, and they've lost nothing in the bargain.
It's just an interesting position because you could tell that the dynamic of, do we want to go for the Fury? No, Leon wants to fight. Does Leon want to fight? Let's go for the Fury. Like, that little bit of indecision. It's going to burn a little bit of time on your Fire Giant, but ultimately you get an Oni Fury, and like you had mentioned, all of that gold they get to spend now is going to easily pump into their pockets and feel, I would argue, pretty good at this point. You're going to be able to buy it up. I think a Soul Reaver was just finished there for Baroneri, as well as the others being able to pick up a couple of items, but a lot of ward coverage coming through as well. That, I think, is going to be one of the more important parts here for everybody on average Joes. They were kind of losing the vision battle over there near Fire Giant. It doesn't feel like this one's going to last a minute and a half, maybe long enough to find a win here, but realistically it feels like they're going to knock down a tower, try to get one of these Phoenixes, and then we might be watching one more Fire Giant fight before things kick off again.
Well, looks like just about everyone's starters rather are upgraded now for the average Joes, except for Uzi, who seems to have delayed on that Bluestone Brooch. I imagine he'll eventually be grabbing. Looks like the same for the Winter Dogs. They've got their mid laner and their solo laners upgraded. Archmage's Gem and Pendulum of Age is all there, but it is indeed going to be the right side Phoenix Siege Core, as you prophesized. Only about a minute to make this work. All right, Gordon, maybe a minute's not enough. It looks like the average Joes are backing up. Tier 1 in left taken by Tiamat minions. And listen, I'm not going to be too skeptical of this one, Gore. They did a lot on that Fire Giant push anyway. They're now 8,000 gold ahead. That's a lot of control. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with slowing things down. And hey, thanks, Doug. Nice. I got to be right at least about one thing today, and it was indeed the Brooch, as we expected. But they'll still have plenty of time, I think, to regroup and take a favorite fight on this Fire. Or would you have liked to see them take a crack at that Phoenix and maybe see if they could have at least set themselves up for a better FG fight?
With the AoE and the control that Winter Dogs have in short controlled spaces, I don't know that I want to dive into a Phoenix either, right? Like, I'm a little timid. One wrong move, Aquarius is knocking you up, or he's stunning you, Andy's stunning you, Gamma's doing some sort of lockdown, and then Crimson just throws one of, let's say, 2 giant AoEs at you, whether it's an ult, whether it's a tornado, maybe even just a squall. Like, no matter what, it's going to be a lot of damage into one spot. And so I don't mind them taking it a little slower. It does mean there's a little longer that we have to wait before maybe a big team fight just around this fire giant, right? About 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, somewhere in there before it spawns back up. And the vision game, as of right now, as well as just positioning, seems to be going in favor of Winter Dogs. They're going to back off a little bit, but they're trying to get control of this pit because they have the timer. It was taken wrongfully from them before, but I don't know that they're going to be able to fight on equal footing anymore.
It is a scary fight for them to take. Leon has hit full build, and it's a tanky one at that. Oni Hunters on Keeley Shifters. Looks like even the Shield of Regrowth, which has a great item on Naja at 2, should equal just free speed for him. Spectral Finish for Promise on top of his Mag Eyes he already had. The full crit build now here for Griff. So this is getting to be a fight that I don't know if I super want from the Winter Dogs, but it's also a fight that I don't know if you can just let go without taking, right? Fire Giant, and then their push would be scary, but Leon blinks in, gets the beads out from Annister, and does not drop the ultimate. That makes Andy that much more vulnerable if he does choose to step in.
I mean, blink for beads, it's a 10-second cooldown advantage. Also, admittedly, Leon doesn't need it. He's still going to be able to go in. They're at least zoning perfectly here. That Fire Giant goes down so quickly that it doesn't matter. They didn't even get the chance to try and find a kill, but Uzzie's not going to stop.
No, he blinked in, and now using the cavalry charge to lock down Aqua and Leon there to complete the job. A big ult from Crimson does hit 3, but it will not save the life of his solo lantern. I think the Joes have plenty of healing, but the Winter Dogs like this fight. Annister dunks back in, but Dharmic Pillars cuts off the fight, and that leaves one member left alone, and it's Annister, who followed up on the call and paid for it dearly. There was no backup off of great Dharmic Pillars, and he's left alone to fall.
I mean, it has to come out. Shoutouts to Crimson for recognizing that Naja ult is not just set up for the other team. It is very telegraphed what's going on, and you can absolutely capitalize on it. And he does, but Baronary manages to stay alive there. Leon, or I should say Andy, was a little bit off there, and the rest of the team just a little bit on. Baronary gets a lot of damage turned around right there, and now they're able to run it down mid, and Gamma's out of position. I mean, he's going to be coming up behind him. Maybe that counts as a gank, but I don't know what he's going to be able to do.
Well, he's got to do whatever it is quickly, and it looks like what he's doing is backing. Good call. That Phoenix is going to go down, and 5 members could safely turn to look only at him. So Mid-Phoenix removed, 2 lives claimed, a red buff stolen, and the Fire Giant acquired here for the average Joes as they improve their lead now up 11,000 gold. Looks like they'd like a Primal Fury added to that already long list before they look to go for any more of these, like the Tier 2 over in left. There were Tiamat minions pushing that entire time. They're having that fight and right. That's why that Tier 2 tower in left on the Order side is so low, but didn't even grab that tower after everything that went down. So the average Joes essentially have given up nothing for this last, 10 minutes of the game that's favored them since the stolen Fire Giant. The Winter Dogs, it feels like they fell off the face of the planet in that moment.
I mean, yeah, 13,000 gold down. It's difficult to feel like you have an impact at this point. But I like the fact that they're still being proactive. I mean, I can't count how many times that we've seen a team, especially with a Phoenix down, just kind of sit around their Phoenix line. Like they might walk as far forward as their own bus, but Winter Dogs are looking for their own form of blood. In fact, they might be able to get this Tier 2 thanks to the Tiamat minions that have been pushing this down. Gamma's going to try to lock down Baronary, forces the ult, and that tower is virtually gone. This is going to be a good fight for the Winter Dogs.
And Cuckoo will flatten Baronary on top of Annister, so Anvil of Dawn gets big value. That is the Tier 2 down, but Dharmic Pillars, again, perfect as Promise, has played lights out in this set so far, and that will get them Annister. Aqua will be the next one up. He's silenced with nowhere to go. Finally gets that leap off, but slowed by the pillar. That means he uses the beads just to escape and has nothing for when Promise dashes in, but still Annister alive. 2 safety relics keep the solo laner in this game, but now he's expended everything, and Yuji shall fall in his stead. It's Griff on a rampage, and now the average Joes with a 4v3 advantage can just make this push happen if they like. They still have Griff, and that's all they need to tear through these structures.
I mean, you had mentioned it, but I'm going to double down on it. Promise's placement of these Dharmic Pillars has just been perfect. Like, every single time I see them get thrown up, it just feels like it's locking the Winter Dogs down into a lose-lose scenario. I think Yuji earlier was forced to use that Bifrost to get out of them. Like, it's just small plays like that that really make a big difference for him, even because you either walk through it and you take all this damage and your prods get shredded, or you don't and you're locked down, easy target.
Look how much the DPS has increased now that Griff is here. They started this up a bit before their ADC was ready, but I think Gamma might need to get ready to pay the iron price. He gets locked down, passive ends up killing him, but in comes Anster. It sets up for Griff, who has to stick around a bit too long, and Andy will claim that life. And that means Aqua actually dashes towards the average shows, but they have no way to punish on the back of it. A couple good kills here for the Winter Dogs, taking down Griff and Uzi, and even a chance to find more as Leon seem to be trying to grab the blue buff, but Baronary, the sick him into the crush, shuts down Crimson, and just like that, the moment, the breath of fresh air the Winter Dogs thought they had was ripped away from them. What a fade away from the mid laner for the average Joes.
I mean, and they're still looking like, I mean, they're getting aggressive. Look at Baronary. Like, you don't run that way as a mid laner. Like, you're not supposed to be getting that aggressive. Wait for somebody else. I was going to say the downside of Leon's build is that, yes, it's survivable, but he doesn't necessarily have that damage to turn things around. Any other jungler, I see Uzi, Promise, plus an Assassin. I'm still a little worried about trying to take that fight. But it didn't seem to quite work out that way. Again, just before the tanky nature. Luckily, Baronary was there, so it didn't even matter what was going on for it. As it's a Soul Reaver pickup, the huge proxy's going to be able to get the damage. Plus, I was going to highlight, when they killed Uzi, they had plenty of time where he's going to respawn about the exact moment the Fire Giant does, which to me meant Winter Dogs be standing on it when it spawns in, use Crimson's ult to confirm it, and feel really confident about that. And then Crimson died, and all of a sudden it says, okay, well, Baronary, be there when it spawns up. You're going to be able to confirm it way faster than the Winter Dogs. As long as you can do it before a Kukulkan Khan comes, you're set. You don't have anything to worry about.
Well, they're on to the Fire Giant now. Minions in left in favor of the Order, but they are meeting up with Tiamat minions there, but seems as though that is not a deterrent for them as they continue to push in. Mid Phoenix is low and ready to be sieged, but it's the Winter Dogs with the strong positioning around the Fire Giant. And they continue to push in. I like this. When the back of the Winter Dogs is against the wall, they choose to go forward and through. But will the average Joes allow this to be successful even one more time? And look where Leon is. He's just pushing up all on his own, threatening a mid-Phoenix. That's why Yuji and their backs are getting channeled, yes, by the Winter Dogs, but they're not going to get there in time as Leon continues to shred the middle Phoenix. What a call from the average Joe's shot caller who moves into jungle. Not only does it open up the Fire Giant pit gore, but the mid-Phoenix opened as well. Winter Dogs just got played.
I mean, that's such a big win-win, right? You knock down the mid-Phoenix, you guarantee yourselves a Fire Giant with no stress at all, and you put Winter Dogs back into a defensive position where they weren't comfortable before. I mean, you were saying it like they would rather get aggressive and try to catch you off guard. It's been working for them that way. But now, Gamma was left all by his lonesome. He's going to get CC'd into Doom. And that is just good plays coming down. Leon split push as well, like just enough. And all that was needed to get that mid-Phoenix. Plus the Fire Minions on left. I mean, that Titan's been taking damage. Like, it is not comfortable right now. With two Phoenixes down, the average Joes could theoretically just run it down and go straight for Titan.
This is a pretty high win percentage for the Joes, but it is not guaranteed. They have Leon pushing through mid. He finds Andy and start channeling the ult, and Andy will escape to the sky. Griff, though, has used both his relics, so if Anster can find him, that should be a kill. And Anster does land in the back, but it is not enough. He falls. Aqua comes in to back up his boy, but is stuck inside the Dharmic pillars, and Griff finds the impale. But I'm a monster doesn't connect. Aegis is there, and Crimson flattens Baronary with an ult of his own. But Leon doesn't care about the team fight. Leon doesn't care what Andy's up to. He goes right for the Titan and dares Yuji to stop him, and he can't. The Joes take game one in 36 minutes, or at least pretty close.
I mean, good plays from them and good calls. I mean, that's twice Leon breaks off from the team fight. And guess where he shows up? The most vital place on the map. I mean, he gets the mid-Phoenix, guarantees a Fire Giant, gets the Titan down, and didn't even necessarily need him. He just needed nobody from Winter Dogs to be around. And once he takes Yuji up into the air, so good luck getting rid of those minions. Whether or not he deals the last hit is not a big deal for him. So I think that was, again, the play that I expected of him. I thought it was going to take a little bit longer, but this is the average Joe's team I've been waiting for.
Glad to see it. This team seems to be coming together here with this new formation. Promise looking very good in support as well. Maybe get him Ganesh again. That's it for game one, though. We'll take a quick break, then be right back to break everything down.
End of it there, the average Joe's able to take game number one in 35 or so minutes. And Agro, a refreshing look at this team and the shot calling and some of the decision making maybe a little bit cleaner.
Yeah, I mean, that split push to get mid-Phoenix by Elion, the split push to get the Titan by Elion. I mean,
right.
You're not doing that on support gods and making it happen. But it's not just that Elion looked very good in the jungle, and he did, but Promise looked fantastic on that Ganesh in that game. I mean, really, really made plays, stole the Fire Giant away.
It's the pick, right?
Just great ult after great ult. Yeah, it's almost like more people should be playing this god, something like that, right? I mean, that's what it seemed like to me. This game got a lot easier, though, for the average Joes because Griff was absolutely manhandling Yuji on this side of the map. I mean, it was not close. Yuji was so far behind in this lane basically all game. Griff was nuts. I feel bad for Krim, man. He had an unreal game. I think he finished 6-1. It had 42,000 player damage. Like, what is that in a losing effort? That is tough to swallow if you're the mid laner for the Winter Dogs. But I think the rest, every other role for the average Joes just outperformed what Krim was able to do and what the Winter Dogs were able to do on their side.
Look, and that's a composition, if you're the average Joes, that requires some serious communication and control to play around. There's just so much AoE you have to dodge around in those team fights. The coordination was at an all-time high. Here are your post-game stats. UG, you're right, 0-6 on the Heimdall. We apparently are living in the year of the Anher, and that might not change anytime soon if this level of play continues outside of just this one game. Crimson, 42,000 damage. Good for, I don't know, better than 3 of the average Joes combined over there for
Unreal,
Crimson. I saw Crimson, I think, effectively one-shot Baronary at the end of game number 1. It was pretty nuts there what the Kukulkan was able to do. Unfortunately, a little bit lower across the other charts.
Well, that's just one of those games that Krim probably couldn't have done anymore. Like, he did more than you could ever ask of a player, and it's just not enough to win. And that'll happen. You know, at the team game, Krim has got to be the good teammate and say, don't worry, guys, you know, I'll pop off again in game 2. Let's just see if we can get the whole team popping off. You know, maybe try and rotate a little bit more, something along those lines. But let's be real. Well, you can't ask for more of him. Baronary did, like, what, 14 or 16,000 damage versus the 42 that Krim put out. Feed Krim, give him the hot hand, give him whatever he wants. They last picked his god that time around. If that's what he wants to do, keep doing it. If he wants a top pick, give it to him. And just try and get the rest of the composition comfortable around him, because Krim was firing on all cylinders that game. It was just the rest of what the Winter Dogs were doing was not at the level of the average Joes.
What did we say Krim was? 6-1? I don't know, their aggro. Maybe a little bit of room for there's a little room for improvement for Krim in game number 1. Yeah, right. I mean, you know, 6-0 seems better to me than 6-1.
Yeah, sure.
No, an incredible performance for the Winter Dogs mid laner. Replicating that performance will be important, or attempting to get close to that will be important. Even a third of that, a half of that, probably feels pretty good as a mid laner if you're able to get that much damage off. Picks and bans for game number 2 starting right now, though. Sobek banned out yet again here, and it looks like maybe the same wave of bans from the Winter Dogs. Really don't like that Aphrodite, really don't like the Athena. And Leon apparently doing enough setting up that the Naja will take a ban as well.
I think that makes sense. I mean, you don't want to ban something like the Ganesh for Promise. That doesn't feel very good in the top half. And you know that if Baronary wants that setup in that mid lane, then you're going to try and take away those setup gods. So that makes sense to me. I think the Naja really was the glue that kept that composition together. And you had 2 combos there between the Naja Ganesh and the Naja Scylla. Take the Naja out of there. That's both combos that you don't have to worry about anymore. So I like the idea, but this is the pick that I was worried about, is that on her for Griff. It shouldn't be Heimdall for UG, I can tell you that much. I mean, and that's the thing, is that Heim theoretically has a pretty decent matchup against on her, because you have a form of knock-up immunity with your 2. You can use that to not only not get impaled, but not get jumped on, which is a huge part of on her's aggression.
Right.
If that didn't work, what will for UG? That's what I'm wondering. Maybe Jingwei?
All right. Hey, what a call.
There you go.
All right, you saw the name at the bottom there for sure, right when it got hovered, right? I mean, there's no way. No, it's just
Dave,
timing.
I didn't.
Right, fair enough.
No, I'll tell you how I got here. When you want to run away as easily as possible, Jingwei is the pick. When you just don't want to be in that lane, Jingwei is the pick. So yeah, you go Jingwei after that type of game.
Right.
Look, Yuji's a really good player. I think he's a solid ADC. But if Griff is feeling it and he's going on that same pick, just don't play that late. You know, you don't have to try and be the guy. Try and get to the team fight phase and outplay him there. If Griff has a handle on that lane, you go with Jingwei to make your lane as easy as possible.
Got it. So the next time I get auto-filled into ADC, I'll just lock in Jingwei immediately so I can run away constantly.
Literally,
as much as possible. Sounds good to me. Well, look, Giannis locked in now for Crimson. It was a ban there in game number 1. Crimson didn't get the chance to play, and then a Yemoja on the other side for the average Joes. Still high potential for Krim, I think, on this pick and the Giannis, and the ability to kind of change the face of team fights depending on how the portals through space and time, all that sort of stuff starts working for you. And Krim has proven that this pick looks good in his hands.
Definitely. I mean, like I said, when this man does what he did in Game 1, whatever he wants in Game 2, whatever he wants in Game 2, because he's earned the right to try and go for it here. I do think that he's going to be strong on this pick. This has been a signature pick for him in his career. A little bit awkward against someone like Yamoja, who's so good at keeping up those shields and that healing. You kind of have to start one-shotting people, and Giannis doesn't do that super well anymore, so you really have to see him use that utility to his advantage. I think the Winter Dogs need some solid damage left in their composition, and it looks like it's going to be Guan Yu support, most likely, though. It could be tier support as well. I mean, Jake has popularized that. Gamma, I'm sure, has both of those warriors in the God pool. It's going to be a 4 physical comp, and your only magical damage is the Giannis. So the good news is it's a little bit awkward for Yamoja to build Sovereignty because she's so focused on getting the mana and the MP5 and the cooldown to facilitate her Omi regen. It's a little bit awkward to build Sov. I think I would probably just try and fit it anyways because you're going to need it with the double warrior Raven dive that your backline's going to be facing.
Wow, and then a Mercury aggro to round out the draft here. So some interesting pivots, I think, to look at. Tier or Guan Yu in support on one side, and then Mercury for the first time in the North American SCC over here for Leon in game number 2. Still some setup, right? You get the big ultimate, you lock down targets for a couple of seconds there. Scylla able to follow up Yamoja there. You think the average Joes have that utility to give Baron Area the chance to get off some of those detonates?
Yeah, they've got good setup between, I mean, on her, Impale is decent setup. Even the slow from Shifting Sands is super strong. You've got the stun and the walls and the Riptides from Yamoja. Mercury is really one of my favorite setup gods to play with in the mid lane because it's such a long duration of lockdown on his ultimate and into the special delivery. So I like the composition here for the average Joes. I'm a little bit worried about El Leon getting his damage off consistently because I'd expect multiple shells. On the Winter Dog side, of course, Shell has not received its change quite yet. Block stack still fantastic up against Mercury. You're going to see some upgraded shells, I hope, from the Winter Dogs, and their capability of locking him down and just negating his damage and then using all their damage between these warriors to offset it and kill him first is going to be a concern. Elion's going to have to pick his spots well in this game in order to be effective.
And it's safety, but for physical for the Winter Dogs here in game number 2. Can they send us on to a game 3? We'll go down to Finch and Gore to find out.
Thank you once again on the desk, Dolson and Aggro. Finch, Gore, and Doug here as you go into this important game number 2, where Leon and Promise are really kind of the front runners of dominating that game alongside Griff, obviously, with the impact that he had over in duo. We'll see if they can find a way to do it again up against a new look from the Winter Dogs. It's tier support here for them. It's Andinster on this Robin, Yuji on the much safer Jing Wei. It feels like Winter Dogs want to take the fight to average Joes early this time around here, Gore. Is that your read as well?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they want to try and play. Gamma, I'm really excited to see what he can do on this tier. Same thing for Andy. I think they're both going to be able to come online pretty quickly. I mean, tier, technically he's online once his Fearless is online, so that's not necessarily a big deal. But realistically, we're probably waiting to levels 3 to 5 before we start talking a lot about him. We might see a little bit of action over here in the duo lane, but it's going to be difficult, even with the pressure of a warrior, to out-farm and out-zone Yamoja plus on her. I feel like they're going to be able to clear pretty easily, or at least keep themselves safe, so Gamma's going to have a little bit of struggles over there. The thing I'm interested in is Leon, knowing that this is going to be maybe a little bit more of an early game. First off, an early game-oriented team playing an early game-oriented draft goes for Mercury. Really good setup early on, but Mercury is the late game guy. Like, I mean, he's one of the others that is kind of in that same facility as your Bakasuras, your Kalis, where you don't expect to see a whole lot of them until 20 minutes in. And he's also gone for a hidden dagger sword. Doesn't have boots just yet. And so I'm really interested to see what Leon's going to be doing here in the jungle, because this seems like it could be an interesting fresh take. Maybe it's something that could bring Mercury into the meta.
Yeah, I'm thinking we're getting Ninja Tabai into Rage, something like that, to get Leon off out of the starting blocks ASAP here in this game. That's got to be the play for him. As there's this Gamma aggression you mentioned, has grabbed Griffin, brought him low. Yuji doing his best to follow up, but not much there for him. But this has got to be what Gamma's going to do a whole lot of. I'm thinking getting aggressive, being this bullying presence as Leon considers putting some presence over, but Yuji was there to place a ward. He'll know if Leon does actually come on over there, but I doubt it'll be before he's got a little bit more online. Only level 2 right now as opposed to Anster, who's level 3. And I love this aggression out of Gamma. That's going to have to be the look here for him in this game if they're going to want to slow down Griff, who was an absolute killer in Game 1. Made life real tough for Yuji.
Now it looks like they're going to be able to lock Griff down. I mean, this is dangerous
There's a knock.
territory.
It is, but Griff has the impale and never once looked like my man wanted to run. But Gamma wants to get back into the fray too. Good news for Griff is, though, his support is Yamoja. Gets to just heal him up for free with those autos. That's pretty cool. And he'll be back topped up before too long.
Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, oh no, Promise has to use a little bit of his Omi to heal you up. I don't think they're that stressed out about it. The thing I think is crazy, and like, I feel like we've seen Promise, like, whether it was SOC games, SCC games, or hell, even some of the, like, we'll grab random rank games for, like, demos when we're just testing stuff to make sure everything works and doing, like, tech rehearsals and everything. I don't know where I've seen Promise's name, but I know I've seen it. But I'm really wondering where Promise has been. Like, Promise, like, as a support right now is giving me a lot of just joy to watch. Like, all the little things that are going right for him, right? It's the same stuff that I get when I'm watching the good pros play, you know, things like Yamoja, where it's just, like, enjoyment in how their setup is, their positioning, where their focus is going. And I really think, like, not like last game was talking about how great it was to swap Leon back to the jungle because, yes, that's an obvious choice. But Promise is such a good pickup for this team. Like, Average Joe's, look, it's going to be a lot of work, but they're trying to catch up to, what, a 5-0 team, a 4-1 team? Those are the top 2 right now in NA. I feel like this is the roster to do it. Like, Promise is impressing me, Baroneri's impressing me, Uzi's already impressed me in the past, so I can kind of put him aside. Griff's Game 1 is enough to let me give, like, a full signature write-off on what he's performing. I'm just excited to see how they start to take the storm of North America now, because I feel like this is going to be a different Average Joe's team. I mean, almost essentially following the story of their namesake, right? Like, they come in, we don't expect a whole lot of them, and now they look like a team that could go and win it all. We just need Globo Gym, and we'd have the full thing.
They'd get a real chance to turn things around. Promise, I believe, did play with Baroneri for a good bit last year, towards the end of the year, and then was trying to quali into the open qualifiers this year as well, but did not quite make it. But now here he is, alongside his boy once again on the Average Shows. I think you've laid out that storyline well as Leon shows some face here in ranked, but there's way more blue faces than red here, so Leon is backing up appropriately, I think, as now they look to collapse onto Uzi, who's made his way underneath the tier 1 for safety. Blue buff being looked at, but in come Anister and Gamma, and Leon stuck right between them. Special delivery, though, used for the retreat, and the blue buff successfully invaded as Crimson, sending an ult in, narrowly misses, hitting Leon back there. Not sure if it would have been enough to kill at that range, but certainly would have gotten him low.
Now, I don't know that this is as big of a downside as it feels like it. Like, as a jungler, you always want your speed buff. I happen to see Andy's speed buff is up, but he's stuck with a blue buff around his belt because it didn't quite land, I think, where they wanted it to. And attempts to steal it away, I guess, in successfully stealing it away, it's kind of left him in this awkward position where now at least one of his camps, in my mind, is something you don't pick up. Or maybe you let it go over to Gamma at least one time here. I think that wouldn't necessarily be a really bad trade, letting the tier have a little bit of movement speed. And it's not really the end of the world for Andy either. Having mana regen, admittedly, it's not the same movement speed to let you get around the map a little bit better, but you're going to be a little more active in these team fights. It's just, I think, just unfortunate placement.
Leon, though, has gotten Yuji low. Looks like he had to commit the ultimate to do it, but there's the ultimate from Baroneri, just barely, not enough damage. Absolutely unbelievable. You know Baroneri a bit frustrated, even with the red buff. Can't quite get rid of Yuji there, and they never, for some reason, got his beads out either. Good attempt from the Average Joes, but all they'll get from Yuji is his ultimate and a cheeky backwards glance as he makes his way out of there.
Well, Gamma getting aggressive, kind of all by his lonesome here. I mean, you can do some damage, you're tier, but I don't know what you're going to expect on the back end of that. Whereas Crimson, like, that is the clap that comes from a Yanis right now. I mean, there's been a lot of conversation around him. I think Yanis, like, just his portals and his maneuverability around the map makes him great because he's safe. Like, I think it was like Hurwind, I was looking at his KDA. Like, he's got a very ridiculously low amount of deaths, ridiculously high KDA because of his survivability. I think that's going to come up in about, I don't know, well, it depends on if this game goes 3 or not. Whenever waiting room happens, I feel like that's going to come up. That's the safe way to say that. And so I feel like this is something that is, easy to talk about, but man, oh man, does Unstable Vortex absolutely pop people. And, like, when I first, so go back to Yanis release, it hit really hard, but I think it still is a deadly ability.
Well, here's Gamma blinking in on Leon, who uses the beads, but over the wall comes the ultimate from Anister. That is the dunk, and he'll get his blue buff, or speed buff eventually. It's just that he'll be taking it from Leon. This is what I think they're going to have to do, though, Gord, with this Robin, with this tier support. They're going to be really egregiously aggressive like we just saw and worked out there.
I mean, that's exactly what you want to see out of this kind of composition, right? Like, tier is meant to be aggressive, play aggressive. Robin's meant to be great, essentially starting at level 3, but realistically right now, like, I would argue for the next 10 minutes, maybe a little less than that since we're about 8 minutes in, he's just got a distinct advantage over what Leon's going to be able to bring, and that's nothing against Leon. That's more of a slight against Mercury, right? Like, I mean, Mercury just isn't really the first 10, 15-minute game of their god. Like, he is going to take a little bit of time. I'm interested to see, again, where that hidden dagger goes. You had mentioned Rage earlier, and I wouldn't mind seeing that, but I want to know how heavy he invests in the crit, if he's going to get things like, I guess, stone cutting is something that we're, like, typically seeing. Like, there's so many options for a Mercury. I'm just wondering to ride that wave alongside Leon. But admittedly, for Winter Dogs, the best way to not deal with it is to just keep it shut down perpetually, and then we'll never get to ride that wave. Joes will just never really get to have a hand on the wheel.
And you're right. I mean, take a look at his net worth, about 500 below his direct opposition, much closer to his own support, really, than to where the jungler should be at this current pace. But Gamma and Andenster have been relentless in terms of looking for pressure. They cannot find the stun. Overhead kick remains good, but there is a Riptide just not in position to really follow it up. And I think Leon is wisely keeping his focus more on his farm. As through space and time connects, even steals a little bit of the camp. That means Leon has to again reset, and this blue buff invade should be next to free here for the Winter Dogs. Yes, Promise is on his way to try and contest, but not nearly what they would be able to do if the jungler were here. So yes, blue buff stolen once more.
I really love what Winter Dogs are doing this game. I mean, like, it's exactly what they're drafting. It's almost telegraphed, like, hey, we're going to get aggressive, we're going to beat you down, but they're playing it so cleanly, at least in the invades on this right-hand side of the map. They're making it so awkward to try and be a member of Average Joe's because they lost the blue buff. They managed to secure the speed buff, but they essentially just lost some more experience camps, and now Andy and Aqua are running around your tier 1 tower. Leon has to be careful engaging on this red buff. It's not safe.
Yeah, Baronary, on reaction to the blink, used the ultimate for the CC immunity, and now the red buff is indeed the target. And Baronary continuing to be pressured. He finally does have to use the actual bead. Sentinel does get him over the wall, but now they want to try and find Promise, so Gamma has Lawbringered into the outside of the base. This is how far the Winter Dogs have gone to look for early game pressure, and now maybe they finally overstepped as Aqua in trouble. Mystic Rush over the wall, though, means Anster does get Leon solo for jungle, as even Gamma is here. Uzi uses the beads just so he can keep up the aggression because he knows he has Gamma low, but without more mana, with the whole squad here, 5 members of Winter Dogs in between the two tier 2 towers, just not much room really for the Joes to follow up. And of course, Yuji able to start getting aggressive and looking for purple buff invades. He'll take every opportunity he can to look for revenge here up against Griff.
All right, well, the 10-minute, I guess 11-minute check-in has it about 1,500 gold in favor of the Winter Dogs, right? Experience in their favor, 2 levels, 1.5 levels there in the jungle, a level for the support, a level in mid. The problem I have, I mean, they were deep, but here's the issue I'm starting to see with Winter Dogs, and I'm just wondering, at this pace, can you win fast enough? Because I see a King Arthur, I see a Scylla, I see a Moja, I see Onra, I see Mercury, like, Average Joe's will fight back, and it is just a matter of when. If you can beat the game fast enough, I mean, you were trying to speed run right now for your Winter Dogs. I think now is actually when you need to get the most aggressive, because things are going to start unraveling. Neither of the Scorpions have been taken down. No Gold Furies have been able to spawn. No Fire Giant, no Pyromancer. So you have to start thinking about these big objectives, because average Joes are in a position, especially with a level 11 Scylla for Baron Aerie, that they can contest those at the minimum. Leon might not be the hyper carry just yet, but there's other portions of this team coming online sooner than that, and they translate really well into those late game fights. And so I like the pace Winter Dogs is set, but they need to keep it up, maybe even accelerate it a little bit, I think, to be able to win this surefire. Because otherwise it's going to get a lot more difficult in about 10 minutes.
Well, Baron Aerie might think he's safe, but I don't think he is. Gamma blinks in, Aqua there for the stun, and Baron Aerie with no beads has nowhere to go. River's Rebuke is a nice thought, but it is an afterthought. There's nothing it can do to help out their mid laner, who's already fallen only about 20 seconds away from the beads at that point when they dove. Meanwhile, Yuji will collect the Greater Scorpion and send for the team, and Uzi does his best to get involved, but they need a lot from him here as Griff rotates over and catches the hands from Andinster, but Griff does do his job and keeps the red buff standing. But Crimson and Gamma on their way. Red buff defended. Now just escape with your lives. Looks like they will. But it is a constant and unyielding threat on their buffs. The average Joes under so much influence as Gamma just ults in to the tier 2 tower. If anyone was there, he'd have taken him. He was happy to look for it as the Riptide does collect 2 members and the stun, and Gamma will finally pay for his crimes as great work from Promise and Griff there to collect the kill.
Now, this is another issue I'm starting to have with Winter Dogs. They're looking for a lot of blood. They're playing Team Deathmatch, and Joes are playing Conquest right now. I mean, look at the towers, right? Like, especially with this ult coming down mid, this looks like a good fight for the Joes.
And it turns into one, but a better response, though, from Aqua, who stays involved in the middle of this map and finds 2-man stun to set up for Crimson to go down and trade, or excuse me, set up for Leon to go down and trade for Crimson. Meanwhile, Yuji wants to take this battle over here in left. He's got to win this one and uses the beads on landing so he doesn't get knocked up. But in the end, has to run from Griff. Does get the kill onto Promise, though, in the 2v1, which is pretty big there for Yuji Gore. It's action everywhere.
Again, my issue is the focus on objectives. Diving tier 2 towers while tier 1s are still standing, you know, looking for blood where maybe there isn't any. Like, someone tell me why Andy's up there right now, right? Like, I just can't figure that one out. That one is on him. I mean, I guess going for a speed buff, but all by yourself, I don't know if that's really the call to make. And it looks like they're going to be able to start squeaking out things. The Gold Fury should be going their way pretty easily. But I'm worried a little bit about the grip Winter Dogs had on this game. It doesn't seem to be anywhere near as strong as I thought. And look, I mean, they're still 2,700 gold up. That's a good lead to build off of. Yeah. But none of the towers have fallen just yet. They're going way too deep and kind of throwing their lives at nothing right now. I think a more organized team is going to be knocking down the towers, knocking down objectives, taking this lead and turning it into a just crushable amount of weight on the Joes where they aren't able to come back, as opposed to looking for more kills on that. And kills will come with it, right? If you're getting these tier 1s and tier 2s, you're going to find blood in the midst of it. You just need to focus on those first, objectives, then the kills, because otherwise this will end up happening too.
Well, there's the ultimate into the impale on the wall, and Yuji still alive for now. Manages to get the ultimate off even in that big-time gank. It tricks them, goes the other way, and buys time. Will never survive, of course, to the 3v1, but Yuji extending his life, I think, longer than anyone thought he had any right to. But this is what the Joes' answer is, to try and bring their own pressure wherever they can, and they chose Yuji, who didn't have the beads available in that interaction, never uses the Aegis, and they'll defend. They're purple. They'll go get Greater Scorpion first, then I'll sure they defend their purple. But I think this is kind of that eventual breakpoint you were talking about. How long can you just brute force down these buffs of the average Joes before they're able to start standing their ground and defending when you show up? I think the Rage, not a huge surprise, is the average Joes looking for Andinster and Crimson. Make that 2, Doug, by the way, that I've gotten right all day long in 48 minutes. I'll happily take the credit as Baron Aerie escapes but has to use beads.
I mean, I'm really liking the way Joes are taking this, right? Because the team fight for for the Winter Dogs is just better right now. I mean, Gamma into Andy into Crimson, like, it's just going to lock him down as a 3v3. You have factor in Aquarius and Yuji. Yeah, that's deadly. But you're looking for Leon trying to find Plux. I mean, you're looking for picks. You're trying to get the stacks on that Rage. And what do you do for that? Try to find one person alone. You have a big ult that is a long ult, I guess is the better way to describe it. You can go from tier 1 tower to tier 1 tower over there. In solo, you can go from tier 1 to tier 1 almost in duo. So find these solo picks, get those stacks up, and become more deadly. He's got that 1,000-fold blade online, so he's going one of the katanas here. And no matter what he ends up picking, it's going to just, again, be another power spike for him, where I feel like the window, at least for Winter Dog's complete crushing victory, has dissolved. Now they have to be a little more methodical in how they approach this.
Looks like blue buff and red buff now defended. Crimson channeling his ultimate does not get grabbed up by Baronary, but Gamma grabs Baronary up basically on his own. Promise did what he could, but no way for him to defend in that position. So now Andister looking for the red buff invade to complete the job they started earlier. That will not work. Andy forced to use the Mystic Rush defensively to escape, and they come back to red. Gamma now here, but can't defend it on his own, so he'll retreat as well. So yes, the average Joes are still losing picks here and there. As Gamma gets aggressive, locks down Leon, takes the bead from him, and Leon forced to run. The River's Rebuke is enough to keep him alive, but it's constant action from them, Gore, and they still are increasing their lead, as in comes Uzzy.
Look, I will absolutely critique Gamma on certain things that he's been doing. Like, there's been times where he's gone in, and I don't know that it's been necessary for him, but I will give him a lot of credit. He is literally the team right now. Like, 2-1-2, he's not the one with the most kills. Andy's got a lot of those under his belt as well, but Gamma is making so much room for them. I mean, like you had said, he essentially soloed out Baronary on his own. He almost killed off Leon right there. I think Gamma is the saving grace for where Winter Dogs are right now. I think if you have a regular Guardian there, this team slows down way too much to be able to find the success they are. But a level 14 support for Gamma over the level 13 jungler for average Joes makes it a lot easier for him to just be aggressive, be a bully, and exactly the style you want to have him play to maintain this lead.
As he's trapped between three, but makes it back to the tier 2 safely. So the Winter Dogs have been successfully invading buffs. One more successful blue buff invade, and they've grabbed this mid-tier 1 tower. All be told, it has netted them here now that we're getting towards the mid-game. A little over a 3k gold lead as Aqua locked down by Griff, who's on the right side of the map. That will force out the ultimate from Aqua, who will use that to escape. Still, though, maybe not completely out of the woods, should have a dash up shortly, and that will get him out. But the Joes will settle for the Pyromancer in Aquarius' stead after forcing him to use the ultimate defensively. It looks like they've just selected to start grouping up here, Gord. I think that makes a ton of sense. They're not going to be able to farm safely isolated on their own, so they'll just group. But meanwhile, the fury in the sights of the Winter Dogs.
And this next time, Oni Fury, yeah, this feels like a really high point of contention. Whoever gets this isn't necessarily going to be able to win the game off of it, but it's going to be a lot of pressure. Again, there's 5 towers still standing for Joe's, 6 towers on the other side. But a lot of those tier 1s are really low. One Oni minion wave left alone is going to be able to get a good amount of pressure, at least some gold in your pockets. It feels like the Winter Dogs have more control over this one, but look, when Baronary's in the equation, I feel like at least just a little bit over what Yanis is going to bring. That ult, that I'm a monster, is just a scary factor when it comes to secure.
Uzzy pushed in by the Fearless from Gamma. That gets the beads out from the Chaos Team solo laner. Meanwhile, Leon can't even get close to Andister and Crimson, who have grouped up together. Back onto the Fury, though, for the Winter Dogs. Uzzy doing his best to lock down Gamma, but Gamma proving elusive on the tier, so Uzzy knows who his target is, grabs a Yuji the second he can, and Yuji falls down into a crush, so good damage. But nothing concrete yet as Andister loops around to the backside of this fight, and the Fury has been dropped and forgotten. Portal gets Crimson out of trouble, but still no hard engage from either team as Andister's made his way entirely to the back where it's warded. They know he's there, but Baronary collected in the portal takes unstable vortex damage. He's low, as is Yuji, who's finally used that Aegis, but holds on to the beads and they never find value. He drops to Baronary on the back of a sonic boom from El Leon, but Baronary, he needs backup as well, has been forced to use the Sentinel defensively and comes back in to help secure the kill on Aqua, but now in danger of falling to Andister, who escapes through the portal, but over the wall comes Griff, looking to get further aggressive if he can. But looks like we'll have to wait and see if he can indeed. What a turnaround, though, here so far.
I mean, look, that's like the most frightening freeze frame ever, right? You've got Honor just up in the air, ready to come down and strike. I'm really, again, excited to see how this unfolds, but the biggest things I'm seeing, first off, Average Joe's getting a ton of kills. Guess what that means? Oh man, that Rage, it's one away from being fully stacked. The Stone Cutting Sword was completely finished there for Andy. We get to see the Mercury have a much bigger impact. Again, that timer that was mentioned at the beginning of the game, and I kind of tried to continually hit on, it seems to have finally hit 0 here. I don't know where the Winter Dogs go from here because their team comp just starts to fall off in comparison to literally every single god on the Average Joes getting better with time. I think this is going to be a pivotal fight because if the Joes walk away with this as controlling and dominantly as it looked like they were going to, it's a Fury, it's a Fire Giant, it's a couple of towers. I mean, it might not be the end of the game, but it is going to put them at a better win state. They are going to be able to control everything on the map from here on out.
Yeah, I mean, it's already a big turnaround for them. Likely should be able to get the Fury on the back of this fight if they're able to get out of it without too much more loss. I mean, this was... It was kind of like your point, right? Eventually going to get this 20-minute mark. They even came into it with a big item deficit. I think in support and in mid, they were about an item behind. Solo and ADC were a bit closer coming into this one, but it doesn't seem to have made a big difference for them. They had a great frontline presence out of Uzi this time, in the backline, patiently waiting for their moments. And I don't know how Leon holds everything until the perfect moment for him to commit onto Yuji with the Sonic Boom, and the follow-up is there. This team seems much more well-coordinated now, doesn't it, this Average Joe squad?
Just cohesive and working as a unit, and it's one of those things, like, this is the scary factor I think that they're going to be able to bring in, because a team that plays the way Average Joes are playing right now, their style, and there's a lot of Pro League teams that do this as well, it doesn't have to be dictated by their play. It can be dictated by the gods they lock in, right? If Average Joes are playing with the Winter Dogs lineup, like their god lineup, I think that they are just as deadly because their shot calling early game is going to lead them into a lead. I think you give them this late game lineup, it's going to look, again, just as deadly as it does right now. You give them one that's strong in the mid, and throw things like, I don't know, a Medusa in there just to make sure it's really locked into the mid game, and yet I still have a feeling that this is a team that is going to be able to take their advantage and really start to dial it up. So a lot of their strength is in the players at this point, and I'm going to say it again, I think they are my most anticipated NACC team to watch from this point on. Like, for the next few weeks, I think they're going to give us some more of the most exciting games.
I certainly hope so. I mean, both the Average Joes and the Winter Dogs are one of those 1 and 3 teams now. Been struggling at the beginning of the year, but kind of to your point, Gore, someone's got to turn it around, right, to get out of that 1 and 3, because eventually they play each other, right? So they just can't all stay down there grouped up together. And I think certainly the Joes now are positioned to be the team that does improve here now. With Leon in the role, I think that really enables him, with Promise looking so good in the support role and everyone else continuing to play at the level that I think we knew that they could potentially kind of forming together at the exact right time to create some space. Still, though, just tough to get up there towards the very top of the NA right now with the 5-0, 4-1 records up there. But you got to start somewhere if you're going to close that gap. It looks like the Joes are in a good position to do that.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's, again, like you're saying, turning a 1 and 3 around as we jump back into it. I mean, this is exactly where Griff was going in. One more kill is going to be solid, and that's on to Andy.
Yeah, Griff able to find it. So now it's a 4-0 in favor of the Joes, even getting those last couple of kills, plus the Fury in favor of the Chaos side team. We are right back in, and the Joes are now in control as well. They have evened up the goal this game. And I don't know, can they burn fire in time? Crimson's out there somewhere, but he's backing, and we're 13 seconds from even Baronary spotting. His backup will be far behind, but that looks to be the call. The Joes want to turn their Gold Fury win into a Fire Giant, and they are burning the objective quickly. And I don't even see Crimson coming this direction. The Fire Giant belongs to the Joes. What a turnaround here at the 21-minute mark as they've wrestled control back from the Dogs.
So I think the max we saw was, what, 5,000, maybe a little less than that gold lead for the Winter Dogs, but it turned into a 2,000 lead before any of the Furies were taken. Now it is a little bit of a lead, about 1,000 gold in favor of the Average Joes after that Fire Giant. Finch, 6 towers worth of gold on the map. That is going to be a heavy swing in favor of the Average Joes. Again, right now it's back. Spend a little bit of extra cash that you got in your wallets. But whatever they group up, wherever they decide to, honestly, pushing down left, it seems to be the lowest tower, maybe the easiest one to just break through and disrupt. It's going to just be a clean play for them. Unfortunately for them, all of the Oni waves get pretty much eviscerated right in the middle by the Winter Dogs. So they're not going to have that pressure with them. Just, you know, a fire giant buff around their belts and a lot of winning team fights over the last couple of minutes. I mean, that is maybe enough to say they're going to have a pretty good push here. So they're going to be going in on Crimson.
Yeah, Leon drops the Sonic Boom, concentrates his ult out for it, so well timed by Crimson to not have to use beads to escape, but Leon thought he had a chance to find a pick there.
Not a lot of junglers are able to use crit, but you can see Leon, again, fully stacked Rage now after that fight. Feels good for him, and he's already started that, what, I guess it's Hidden Blade, Hidden Dagger now is the second one in that tree, I believe. So going for more crit no matter what, whether it's a Deathbringer. Well, yeah, okay, let's just say it. It's going to be a Deathbringer. He's going to be hitting really hard, and it's going to be very fun to watch when that comes online. But as of now, he's maybe not going to be the end-all, be-all. I'm still looking at Griff, man. I mean, at 4-0-2, he has been having a stellar day on this on her. Again, something I plan to go in depth, I think, very heavily in waiting room. But, like, I expect on her to continue being a top pick for a little while now, just because of the way he's been playing. And at least for Griff here, like, this is scary, man. I don't want him to have this in his hands, but I'm thinking of some of the other gods we've seen him play. I don't know if there's anything I feel comfortable letting Griff have. He just seems to be an all-around solid carry. And at 4-0-2, at least for this game, he is causing such a huge impact for the average Joes and really hurting the Winter Dogs.
Well, looks like a 4-1 grouping for now. Joes still have about a minute and a half left to work with on this FG, but they are backing up. Leon kind of alone over there in solo, trying to split push this tier 1. It looks like he just got the word he's got time. So the Joe's backed up for a minute. And now they're ready to start pushing again. Initial target will be Aquarius. Can't lock him down, so Gamma moves in. But it's actually Uzi who engages first. Gets the beads out from Yuji, but they left Griff alone in the back. But Leon catches up to Anderson in the front, though, so it does not matter. It was Crimson who tried to get the job done. Back there pushing on to Griff, but couldn't do it. Leon gets himself a double as he collects Gamma back in the 5-man grouping. And just like that, it looks like the air has been taken out of the Winter Dog sails. They have completely deflated Gore, and the average Joes are taking whatever they like.
I mean, what a good path through the jungle for Leon to be able to pick that one up on the tail end. And like you said, they don't have a lot of time. I mean, 45 seconds left, that's enough to knock down a Phoenix, especially in a 3v5. With all the damage they have, I don't expect this to last very long underneath their ire. I don't know that it's a game-ending state just yet. They might even be able to knock down a second one. 30 seconds left. I mean, that burned way quicker than I was even going to give it credit for. And this is going to be a huge lead for them. Average Joes, I mean, one good fight, especially with Crimson looped off out of position, quote-unquote, as yen as can be. I mean, this could be a good spot for them to potentially find a kill. I think they're going to have to wait for another Fire Giant before they can really end this one. Maybe just one clean fight around the Fire Pit.
Well, just like that, the script has been flipped. Leon now the 2-level lead in the jungle as Anderson's farm has plateaued. He's come to a halt in the jungle. Now level 20 for Leon. Should be able to top off that Eye of the Jungle once he's ready. But everyone else of the Joe swinging already as they've been here for a while. Promise not quite to level 17, though Gamma is, and has already used that to hit to its full value and upgraded his starter. But still, though, I don't think the Winter Dogs are so out of reach that this next Fire Giant Gore doesn't have some intrigue. It's about 5,000 gold favoring the Joes, yes, but the Winter Dogs still have the aggression. If they can find one member of the Joes a little too far forward, they can find a pick really, really quickly and get this game back to even.
Well, and you say that, and I just happen to spot Leon all by his lonesome here. Not going to be spotted out by Gamma or Andy. I think those are the two. If they can find someone, it's almost a guaranteed kill afterward. Even Crimson, I think, to an extent. But Aquarius doesn't have easy lockdown. Same thing there for Yuji. And look at Gamma and Andy. They're waiting to try and bait someone in. They're going for the carries. They want the back line.
They know that's who they've been best again as Riptide locks down Gamma a bit away from the team, but I doubt they're going to hard commit on the support. It's Yuji instead, who still didn't have beads for 20 more seconds, forced to use the ultimate defensively. And now in comes Aqua, but boy, is he in the wrong part of town. Did he not see the signs? Did my man take a wrong turn? Whatever it was, the GPS led him straight down the wrong path. Now Fire Giant in the sights of the average Joes, and Aqua not here means that the Winter Dogs don't want anything to do with it. They even send El Leon out to defend the rest of the map as Fire Giant on all 5 members, and the Winter Dogs cannot seem to get their feet underneath them. They are swaying on the spot, barely still keeping their knees off the mat.
And this tier 2, yeah, it's going to go down. It's going to be more gold in their pockets with the Phoenixes. Are the main targets the Titan as well? 4 still standing, 20 seconds before Aquarius spawns back up. He should be back before a next big excursion really fights, and any sort of fighting goes down. So Average Joe's going to have to be careful, or they can try to force it to happen as of right now. I mean, you've got 10 seconds before Aquarius comes through. You can just try to get the Phoenix, but really cause some trouble in the backline.
Already in, and I'm a Monster lands, but Yuji had Aegis to immune the damage, but there's Sonic Boom in the back, and Gamma already removed, and Leon just sidesteps the through space and time, not trying to get hit by that today, as he dodged it quite easily. So once again, a 5v4 for the Winter Dogs, who just cannot seem to figure out how they want to go about attacking this Average Joe's team in the late game. We haven't gotten to see them make a proactive move now for 8 minutes, and it's all been the Joes who have all 3 Phoenixes down, and being patient about how they want to engage. Leon's ult, which has been a good engage tool for them, is down, so maybe they'll need Promise to be the one that's in first. Maybe waiting on Fire Minions to step in before they move, but they've got Crimson locked down already. The Riptides continue to pull him back in, so he uses the portal as an Aegis, but meanwhile Grip has jumped in place and fallen to Andinster, and Aqua still somehow still alive. Yuji finds Baronera. The Average Joes have stumbled feet from the finish line, and the Winter Dogs collect a bit of a moment to breathe, but Leon is not done yet as he finds one more kill onto Aqua to keep things even. But the Joes are done looking for an end at this point. They're just trying to get out with their lives.
I mean, a Rage, a Deathbringer all online, something I think worthwhile. I don't know if it's going to be enough. They still got Fire Minions, though. Mid going to get pushed up here alongside the fight. Fire Minions on right, Fire Minions on left. If Crimson's able to clear out that wave and not have to worry about the Phoenix going down again, it's a good spot. Again, not great for the Winter Dogs, but at least something to dig your heels in and bounce off of in this sort of fight. Leon's still alive, everybody kind of surviving, I would say, through that, and Andrew trying to change that. Average Joes are just waiting. Griffin, Baronary back in 10 seconds. They can still be aggressive. They have a minute and a half with the Fire Giant on the supports. Maybe not the end-all, be-all of it, but at least in terms of knocking down some Phoenixes afterward, should be pretty easy.
We'll see if that's the call. I think this, though, for the most part, is correct to back up for now. Everyone in the Winter Dogs is back up and healthy. They've got mid and left Phoenixes defended for now, so those are back up. But right, it'll be a while before that one respawns, rejoins us here on the Mortal Plane. So Leon goes to the Fury. Should be able to take this one by himself. I wonder if a Blood Forge might be coming next for Leon in this build, or he might want something to add on some tankiness. Either way, I think that Health Shield might be helpful for him. We'll get a chance to see as the Fury goes over to the Chaos side team, and Average Joes take themselves a reset. So still a bit of a ways away from this Fire Giant spawning if they do want to wait for that. It'll be the Wind team, but instead even more crit from Leon, who needs survivability when I just want to swing harder. What a decision from Leon, who's clearly feeling himself at this point.
I mean, yeah, being able to get into the backline, he's been doing it pretty consistently, causing trouble for Yuji, Crimson, Andy. But that Wind Demon giving him a little bit of pin on top of that is going to be great for Gamma and Aquarius. Gamma does not have a Spectral Armor
they're gonna push.
so those crits are going to hit as hard as you can imagine. And yeah, maybe Aquarius gets to live through them, but I think the pressure onto a tier that mostly has health, not a lot of prots online, means that Gamma, if he gets caught out, is just going to take a couple more hits than someone like Crimson.
But there's through space and time. It's an engage from Winter Dogs to catch the Average Joes off guard, and Baronary at least gets I'm a Monster off and is somehow still standing. Annister could not do the job, and they managed to keep Baronary alive in the back. Annister pays the price for it, and Uzzy says, who needs to back up? I want to go in. Sonic Boom connects Yuji, forced to use the ultimate to disengage, but where will he land? Some space created by Gamma, and that does keep their ADC alive, but only for the moment as Uzzy trying to juke these autos. Death if one connects, and one does. Aqua eventually gets the kill, so it's solo for Jungle as Gamma goes in but gets impaled by Grip, who stands his ground, takes care of the left side Phoenix and says, look, we're still happy to push.
They're going to have to back off of that one, though. Too much to risk to try and go in. Even though it's a weakened Phoenix there in mid, it's just not worth the investment. It did distract long enough, but not as much as you would like to reconfirm that right Phoenix as well. So it's going to keep some pressure over there exactly where they want it on the left-hand lane. But it's not going to buy them that pressure anywhere else on the map. Average Joes, admittedly though, because everyone's going to be stuck defending, still have an advantage around the Fire Giant buff. Now they're like all those starters are upgraded, builds are pretty much finished. I mean, Promise is just one away from being able to get that tier 3 online, and this is a deadly team to go up against right now. I mean, you're trying to go in. Gamma showcased it, I think, better than anybody. You ult in as tier, ready to go, and Griff just says, nope, and locks you down against the wall. So this is an interesting play. They're trying to bait out the Joes or get a Fire Giant.
Yeah, I think that they'd be better served letting the Joes start it up and then engaging into it. They're trying to steal the FG away before the Joes can get here, so the ult turn from Promise cuts that off, gives some time for the Joes to make their way in, but the Fire still leashed. Meanwhile, Leon taking the battle. It goes to the Joes, the Fire. Leon deletes Anister with the crits, and he sees more lining up as the F6 vote comes through. Ozzy cuts down Gamma, and this game on the precipice of falling into the Joes' favor, and that Impale might just have done it if they can get this last bit of damage onto Aqua, just the backline of the Winter Dogs to try and keep the Joes at bay. And so in comes Crimson saying, here, a gift, my life, I don't want to defend, I want this set over, and it absolutely is.
I mean, it's just so good. I think that's a good call from Winter Dogs. Like, a lot of people, like, we'll see this in the European teams, we'll see this from pro teams. Like, the safe call is to fight under your Phoenix, fight in your base, fight where it's safe and where you're going to have a defense. I like the fact that they go for their Hail Mary. It's not going to be the thing that wins you the game every single time, but, I mean, you're down and out, you're losing fights in your Phoenix anyway. You only have one option in there, and that's to try and get a Fire Giant and turn things on its head immediately. So they get aggressive. Unfortunately for them, I'm a Monster was ready. Same thing for the Joes. They just replied, I think, faster than they were anticipating on that Fire Giant, and it comes crumbling down. But admittedly, it felt like, what, for 15 minutes, that game was really an average Joes win.
A big win there for the Average Joes to find a 2-0 here and improve their record up to 2-3 and start that climb to catch up with the very top here in the NASCC. We're going to take a quick break, though, then be right back to break down everything we just saw.
swaps pay off for the average Joes, who finish up this set 2-0 and grab their second win of the phase so far here in the North American SCC. Aggro, we wondered how this Mercury would look in the hands of Leon, and by the end of it, some setup from that pick, and then the follow-up from the rest of the team sure looked good.
It sure did. I mean, this team really firing on all cylinders again, but this time they fell behind early more so than they did in game number 1. It felt more like the typical Winter Dog strategy of grouping up, using their warriors to their advantage, and finding the early victories. UG did better in lane this time, did not fall nearly as far behind, but I think the composition really just came to bite the Winter Dogs here in this one. I mean, 4 physicals already kind of puts you in a difficult position. You need your mage to do big damage. Crimson's playing Giannis, which is just not going to be your big damage mage. It just can't be. It's not what the character is good at, and I think we really saw that in this one. I mean, Uzi got to build basically no magic defense at all, and really was able to do whatever he wanted in these team fights. The mobility of the Winter Dogs composition was not enough to secure the victory.
Yeah, it sure wasn't 42,000 damage from Crimson. To be fair to him, that was always going to be a difficult act to follow in back-to-back games here. Kind of the resilience, though, the average Joe's team, I think, was tested here in game number 2, and ended up coming out on top. Here are your post-game stats. Leon, 9-3-7, looking good on the Mercury out of the jungle after his role swap. Remember, if you're just now tuning in, Leon had been playing support for this team, swaps over to the jungle, and average Joes go 2-0 here. 22,000 damage, not bad on the Mercury either. But then the 27,000 damage kind of sandwiched between Uzi and Griff, I think, is really where the job gets done here for the average Joes. Griff on this on her, suddenly becoming a menace aggro, and something that maybe needs to be addressed in future picks and bans.
I agree. I mean, the ADC pool in the NASCC is already pretty strong. I mean, I think Snoopy is definitely the top end of that, but then you look at guys like Guy J and Stewart. I think Griff's name is right there with that tier of player. He has been impressive to me this year. I'm excited to see him continue to grow, man. I think the Griff continues to get better every time we see him.
Here are updated standings after this week, or after this game, rather, in the North American SCC. And just like that, look, everything's so sandwiched down there towards the bottom. Every team 3 through 5 was 1-3 going into Average Joes versus Winter Dogs. And with the win, Average Joes now in sole possession of 3rd place. And then the Herculean Hooves and the Fishies, they'll play on Sunday before the SPL to determine who's tied for 3rd and who's tied down there for 5th place. Here's the rest of the schedule this weekend. Saturday, that'll be tomorrow before the SPL. Snake Hunters and Clay Soldiers will finish off the EU portion of the SCC, and then, as I mentioned, Herculean Hooves versus Fishies will go on to play on Sunday. But Aggro, we're starting to see kind of every team now in North America has played one another. We're really kind of getting towards the end, or the end area of kind of phase 1 here. How do you see this all shaking out? Do you think the standings are pretty indicative of the relative skill level of all these teams? Do you foresee any surprises down the home stretch here?
The only thing that I'm looking for in NA in particular is where the Herculean Hoofs are going to end up, because they started off 0-3, they got their victory, they play Sunday up against the Fishies. I think they need to get the ball rolling, because obviously their talent is indicative of a top 2 team, but can they get enough wins under their belt to get there from here on out is the question.
That's right, that's the team I couldn't believe that started off in such a rough spot,
I know.
But maybe the win starts to build up some momentum. That's it for the SCC portion of our day. We'll take a quick break. Right up next, though, before the SPL kicks off, we'll do the SPL waiting room, set the stage for this weekend in the SPL. SPL waiting room up next. Stick around.